Welcome to the Intermediate Coaching Module. This is Part 1 of Module 2-1, brought to you by Think.Thrive Academy. We are delighted to have you here. In this Pearls Coaching Framework, Module 2, Part 1, we will cover the following. First, coaching competence and transformation. Second, coaching pitfalls and goal setting. Third, performance coaching. And fourth, coaching vocabulary. In the previous module, the content has been presented with the perspective of a newbie coach taking their first tentative steps into the wondrous world of coaching. In this module, the approach is more descriptive rather than prescriptive. Content is presented for you to assess and adopt as it suits your personal style of coaching. We call this finding your coaching voice. So you might see some familiar content being represented using a different frame. And this will be par for the course, no pun intended. So what you might ask at this juncture, what is the goal of workplace coaching? Is it purely for performance? And to what extent do you, as a leader, need to go into the current workplace details and history in order to coach for performance? Moreover, do you use different strokes for different folks? That is, you coach high performers differently from struggling employees? And finally, is it all right to adopt both a coaching and a mentoring approach depending on the circumstances? These are valid questions, and we will explore them along the way. We all know that coaching sessions can be intense and can go on for an hour or more, and once or twice a week. From the very onset of the coaching relationship, as part of the ICF's coaching ethics and best practice, it is vital to create clear workplace coaching design alliance agreements. This includes what the coaching relationship will be like between a coachee and, more often than not, a senior leader of the organization. And it also includes, for each coaching conversation, how will it be conducted and what are the do's and don'ts, especially for topics that are deemed sensitive to the coachee. Coach Claire Pedrick's description of coaching is interesting in that she describes coaching as two people having a conversation about one person, where it is a conversation where someone feels heard and where they get new insights. Coaches are encouraged to invest the first session to discovery, which can cover such topics as: what are my personal goals? What are my professional goals? What is my worldview? Questions designed to help the individual clarify how they relate to others and how they will get the most out of the coaching. In Think to Thrive, the Wheel of Work is the tool we advocate to build the initial container for coaching conversations to happen, and we will be covering this in detail a little later. For now, it is useful to remember that establishing the design alliance is the best way to create the container for conversations. For coaching to be future-focused and optimistic, there is an assumption or belief that something will be different by the end of the coaching session. And even if it hasn't occurred immediately, it would have helped open up a new way forward for later. There would have been a shift in attitude or mindset, which then creates the forward momentum that propels the coachee onwards. How can coaching be a transformation journey? During the Design Alliance, some coaches might want to include the evaluation of personal competencies as part of the transformation process. Your coachees all have unique strengths and unique challenges, and things are often messy. As a coach, you are there to challenge them to move through and past that messiness until new insights emerge, which is a key ingredient to spark transformation. In the transformation process, your coachee begins to understand something in a different or new way from what they understood before. And that triggers a significant and long-lasting difference to how they do what they do. Therefore, a transformational conversation is different from a transactional conversation, where it is more of the same business as usual and input process output driven routine. Let's consider this scenario. You are starting to notice that increasingly your one on one conversations are flatlining. Everything feels a bit off and heavy going. Your coachees start missing meetings or they're not taking their goals and accountability seriously. And so your default leader manager comes back on and you are telling people what to do because you just want to cut to the chase and get things done. Sound familiar? Let's explore one more. At the start of each of your coaching relationships, you want to swing out big and capture not just goals and metrics, but also their bigger, bolder aspirations. Initially, your coachees seemed excited, but after a while, they feel they are going nowhere and motivation plunges. As a coach, you lean in even more and use every coaching tool in your toolbox, but nothing seems to work. Or the opposite might happen. The first goals were achieved in a matter of weeks, and the coaching experience now feels repetitive, like a big yawn. You are tempted to turn up the heat, and you move in to up the targets, taking away your coachee's self autonomous choice. They begin to withdraw, and you begin to challenge their assumptions and opinions even more. Alas, to no avail. So, as you can see, right sizing the challenge, knowing when to throttle and when to paddle back, are critical to keep your coaching feeling fresh and motivating for your coachees. There is this tension at play, and choosing when to be supportive and when to challenge is where you and your coachees find the most growth and best results. In fact, this gets to the heart of your coaching voice, and you will need to adapt that voice for different folks. So you need to be strategic. If you're coaching a high performer, you might agree to quick, frequent check ins. If you are coaching someone with performance issues, you probably need to set a specific day and time each week to maintain momentum and keep accountability high. The bottom line is notice what works and what doesn't. And don't be afraid to switch things up when you need to. How does a new coach handle the coaching complexities and avoid coaching pitfalls, such as being confused over that of the coach voice versus the leader voice, and that of the pace setter versus the supporter? There are some common pitfalls for coaching at this stage of your development, which is you have already acquired a taste for coaching, albeit in a condensed version and using a structured approach. Yet, you need more tools and approaches to deal with the increasing savviness and expectation of your coachees. At this stage, it is useful to prepare yourself well to avoid the pitfalls. An honest assessment of the organization culture and context is key to avoiding pitfalls. We have already mentioned that prescribing coaching as mandatory is a surefire way to doom the advent of coaching culture in any organization. Since time is your most precious resource and limiter, it is important for leaders to determine who are the coachable ones and start with them. Fortunately, there are some telltale attributes of someone who is probably coachable. The first attribute is commitment to growth. Now, these are people who love to learn. They take responsibility for their lives and careers, and they're willing to seek new edges. The second attribute is receptivity. Coachable people handle constructive criticism without being defensive. They're self aware. And that awareness allows them to reflect on their behavior and their impact on others and make course corrections. The next attribute is openness. Here we are talking about people who are open about themselves and willing to reveal where they're stuck and get real about the core of the problem, even if they are at the center of it. Therefore, they are open to setting goals for themselves and take ownership of these goals. And the last attribute is perspective taking. This is the ability to explore alternative ideas and methods and integrate them into new possibilities and new action. Goal setting is about being clear of the coaching intention and how to set objectives that propel the coachee forward. When you first start to bring up the topic of setting goals, especially after attaining an emotional high during visioning at the outset, the coachee is often quite happy to list many goals. The key here is to prioritize which ones the coachee will tackle first. 2 or 3 small goals may be handled simultaneously, particularly if they are closely related. For example, a coachee who wants to both lose weight and feel better about his or her appearance can likely combine the 2 goals. But if a coachee has goals such as achieving work-life balance, taking on an MBA, and posting to another country, trying to work on all 3 at the same time would likely be overwhelming. Prioritizing goals and letting one accomplishment lead to new aspirations is a good way to keep your coachee engaged. You and the coachee establish a goal and set a time frame to meet it. The subsequent success can open up new opportunities and lead to investigating new possibilities they never even imagined before. In addition, once a coachee has achieved a major milestone or even taken successful steps to accomplish smaller goals, you can ask, what else would move you closer to your vision? Your coaching voice here is that of affirmation and encouragement. At the same time, your voice is also doggedly curious and asking many what, when, how, and anything else questions. As previously mentioned, you want your coachee to develop SMART goals, and so the statement of the goal should be stated positively and be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. Thereafter, each goal should be ranked against all other goals according to how important it is to the individual to achieve the desired prioritization. Achievement of a large goal can be further broken down into smaller objectives with the accompanying steps to get there. These action steps break down the major goal into smaller tasks and define target dates to complete each step. Setting timeframes for goal completion is essential to both you and your coachee. Because we are talking about coaching in the workplace, you also want to make sure your coachee's goals align with your team or organizational goals. In other words, if your coachee sets a goal of 20% improvement, and you know that 50% is what's required to meet the company's objectives, be transparent and lean in. Tell them what's important to the company and challenge them to move past what's expected to what's exceptional. This is not inconsistent with your coaching voice. The coaching relationship is a two-way street. So if you're focusing on career development with your coachee, you might agree to make introductions to influencers or create special project opportunities, or make sure that they have protected time and resources for advanced training. If you're coaching a struggling performer, your stakeholders may include other staff, customers, or even HR. The idea is to help your coachee develop a holistic understanding about how their goals and accountabilities tie to and impact key stakeholders. In many circles, one aspect of goal setting is to look at the past in order to chart the future. As a rule of thumb, that sounds logical. Whether it is sales targets or productivity improvements, this approach comes across as being sound. However, in the coaching context, one needs to be careful about overemphasizing the past or even being fixated about issues of current reality when charting the future. This common refrain goes something like this: you need to understand the past in order to be able to move to the future. Absolutely, you do. But if you look at the past by facing backwards, it is very hard to have a conversation that is forward facing. Because what you've done is having really beautifully established that we are going in a forward direction. This conversation, both of us having turned round, and now we are facing backwards. We have explored the GROW model in Module 1. In GROW, during the reality segment, we ask, what is going on? As a coach, you need to be acutely aware of what this might open up, and potentially a pitfall if you are not careful. While it is perfectly all right in this segment, and this is exemplified in the Pearls framework, where E, for experienced, is couched in the positive. For example, what is an experience that really helped you overcome this challenge? Reality, when not handled well, can unintentionally turn both coach and coachee around and facing backwards. And the challenge about the past is that it starts to test the limits of the container for positive change. That might result in a problem and could be why so many coaches take such a long time to get to the heart of the matter. And that's why many coaching conversations need to be 2 or 3 hours long, because you have to do a lot of getting to the place that you need to be. I want to be clear that this is not suggesting that you cannot explore the past.